I crawled out of there. She came back and screamed at me. "If you don't stay in there, I'm going to strap you in that chair and lock the door."
One sat on my leg, one sat on my other leg. People sat on my hands. One person sat on top of me and told me, "You don't do this, you don't do that. You must listen to us, do what we say."
He slammed me up against the wall, arm barred me across the throat and lifted up so I couldn't breathe, and then whispered, "How am I supposed to talk to you nice and slow so you can understand?"
I was in a segregated classroom in 2nd grade. It was in a regular school, but it was built special for all the kids who were physically disabled in our whole city. I was 8 years old when they put me in a room built with a wooden chair bolted to the floor. Chair had straps made of leather and buckles. The teacher read the same book all the time. She read it every day. So I was playing with Sarah. The teacher got mad. I was small, maybe 30 pounds. No warning. She just grabbed me up. She put me in this little closet room. I was so mad I crawled out of there. She came back and screamed at me. "If you don't stay in there, I'm going to strap you in that chair and lock the door." She locked us in there. I was so scared. I finally escaped to the nurse's office. I was so traumatized. I got to use the phone to call my mother. When she answered, I could not talk. She knew it was me though. She was close and got there fast. She says, when she found me I was crying. I was curled up begging to go home. When I was in school I did not have a speech-generating device. Good evaluation would have made that happen. I tried to tell my mother. She did not understand me, or she thought the teachers knew everything. She did not save me until the next school year. One morning, I got mad and said I wasn't going to school. When you have problems with talking, you just say no. In the loudest and easiest way possible. I yelled and screamed in the parking lot. A lot of people came to watch. But it was the only way I could say something was wrong. Violence by children with severe disabilities is almost always in response to abuse. It was awful. The things that happen in segregation. Later in the year, my mother finally saw the teacher next to our class abusing a 5-year-old boy who got put in the closet a lot. She turned in his teacher, but did not realize that what she saw was normal and happened all the time. The problem is that we all want to believe the world is a good place, especially children. So when torture happens in front of us all, people mostly make up a story in their head about the victim having done something wrong. Then people look at the victims differently. They see us as bad or dangerous.
We go to the back of the school so none of the kids can see us, so if the teachers do anything to us, they can't see us because there's a bunch of buildings surrounding our isolated playground. And if you don't listen, if you do not do whatever they say, they haul you off to what I call a white room. I'm in there for about 6 hours a day, and then I come out, and then when I finally come out, I sometimes don't get to eat. The white room was right next to the kindergarten's room, so if you screamed, they would just think you were another kindergarten. The room I was in had a cabinet cinder block walls, a glass pane window with bullet holes in it. Well, if I don't do anything to say, they will restrain me, put me down on the ground. It was the teachers plus 4 A's. Every single time they restrained me was 5 people. One sat on my leg, one sat on my other leg. People sat on my hands. One person sat on top of me and told me, "You don't do this, you don't do that. You must listen to us, do what we say." And then if you continue trying to get out, they will flip you over, put you down on the ground, and they will put your hand behind your back before it comes to its breaking point to where it can snap. Usually I curl up into a ball, I jump, and I run. But they usually do catch me. They put you inside a restraint harness. It's basically a giant blanket that they wrap around you that is supposed to make you feel better, but I just fell over and hit some other stuff. Sometimes I get restrained 2 times, sometimes I get restrained 3 times a day. When I saw kids watching what happened to some kids, they put paper all over the windows. Even if you did want to get out, I'm pretty sure there were some bars on the back windows. They videotaped you and they tell you what to do when they restrain you. Don't do this, don't do that. Of course, you're too traumatized to remember. It's terrible.
Last year, in the mid-year, is when the incident occurred. He came home with head trauma, and he had injuries to his face from restraint. You are hurting our children by twisting their hands and inflicting pain on them in the disability classrooms, which, by the way, are not being surveillanced. There is no surveillance, there is no proof, and there is no way to determine what happened. I don't see why they should not be dispersed throughout a general education setting. I don't understand why it was separated in the first place. If you have to give warning, like 24-hour prior notice to go and observe the classroom, that's not a good sign. Because a good, healthy environment that has emotional structure for a parent will be welcome for participation and involvement. We learn the hard way, and that's hard to deal with, but we can also improve and correct the problem and hopefully have a better future.
But when I want to go back to school, but I'm afraid the same thing might happen again and I won't wake up.
At my old school, from 2nd to 7th grade, I was like an awesome student. I had great grades. I had perfect attendance awards from 2nd grade to 7th grade for every 9 weeks. I mean, I excelled in history because that is part of my Asperger's syndrome. I have a photographic memory. That's also a reason why I can't forget what happened to me in school. When I was 13, my family moved 7 miles away to a new school district. I corrected a teacher who gave out the wrong information about Ohio history. After I corrected him, he called me the R word and gave me 2 Saturday schools. I wrote to my state senator, and he actually wrote me and my teacher and informed me that I was right and told my teacher I was right. When that letter got to the teacher that day, he gave me 2 more Saturday schools. My 9th grade history teacher asked me and 3 other general ed special needs students to stand up in class. She then belittled us by saying, "I do not need nor want them in my class." That discussion came up because the teacher was openly discussing the No Child Left Behind Act in our classroom and asked our class if it was fair that we were allowed in class with them, but didn't have to test as well as them on the proficiency test to move ahead. Older students held me down and smeared ketchup and mashed potatoes in my hair and stuff, in my face, and they said not to mess with the school. Because our schools in Royal, Ohio are the bread and butter of the community. At my IEP meeting, like a month later after that incident, I had tested well enough to be put into an advanced English class my freshman year. But the teacher of that class stated at my IEP meeting that my disability was holding back the other students. My mom asked for an example, and she could not give any. I was being placed in ISS almost every school day. I spent 35 consecutive days in what used to be a storage room under the weight room in the basement of my school. It was concrete, and there was 2 metal doors that were padlocked from the outside. There was no windows and no heat. And the only person who had a key to that padlock was the principal. You could scream in there, no one would hear you. Most students did not even know I was present at school that day. They'd see me at the end of the day getting on the bus, and they'd be like, "Where was you all day?" "In the basement." I remember I was in study skills one time, and I heard my friend in there, and he wasn't allowed out, and he was saying, "I need to use the bathroom, I need to use the bathroom." And he defecated and urinated on himself, and he never came back to school after that. After I spent 35 days in there, ODE ordered no more ISS for me at the third due process hearing in January of 2004. 1 week later, my vice principal came to my science class where I was taking a test and asked me to join him in the hallway, so I did. And I walked out there. He told me I needed to report to the ISS room, seclusion room. And I calmly reminded him that I was supposed to call my mom or attorney if this happened again. And I turned to walk away from him to go back to class because that's what I was told to do. They told me not to engage or argue in any way. But he slammed me up against the wall, arm-barred me across the throat and lifted up so I couldn't breathe, and then whispered, "How am I supposed to talk to you nice and slow so you can understand?" At that moment, I truly thought that I was going to die, so I asked God to make it fast. But he let go, and then they put me in the back of a van with my truant officer and school secretary. They took me into the superintendent and special needs director's office. And the superintendent said, "I feel sorry for you because you have no future." And then there was a knock on the door. And then I guess I blacked out because I was traumatized because I don't remember the rest of the day. But apparently that knock at the door was my stepdad because another student had alerted them that they dragged me into the elementary. And that was my last day of school. And later that night, I did try and take my own life. And that's when I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And after that incident, from January 2004, for 6 months, I did not even step a foot outside my house. I did not socialize, and my skin never, ever saw sunlight. That was my school experience. People always are like, "Why didn't your mom just pull you out?" And why should she have? There's a law that says that I'm allowed to be there. She was fighting for my rights. When I went to that school, they took away all of my confidence that my mom took years to instill in me. My sister was the valedictorian of her graduating class and has a PhD now from Ohio State University, and she had ADD. She was fortunate that she never had to go to that school, and I wish that I could be like everybody else in my family. I can't.
The next time you meet someone with a disability, and they appear odd to you, maybe you should wonder if they were abused too. Most of us who have ever been in segregated classes in American schools have been.
They didn't teach me anything. I want to read, but I can't. I want to spell, but I can't. Basically, the only thing I did at school was get restraint, and that's it. I never learned a thing.
There has to be a law that says it's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen to the next generation. My future was taken from me.